Welcome to the Tank Podcast. In this week's episode, Matteo Pini proposes a theory of the zine, a form of alternative publishing that doubles as a critique of dominator culture.
Zines are born from feedback. Zines first emerged from the fan culture surrounding science fiction magazines in the late 1920s. Each issue of Hugo Gernsback's pioneering magazine, Amazing Stories, had a column of readers' addresses, allowing fans to communicate with each other. Soon, fans bypassed Amazing Stories altogether, forming their own networks of communication to circulate homemade zines. From the beginning, the zine as a medium has been defined by interactivity, fostering dialogue between writers and readers through zine swaps and feedback loops that drive their continuous evolution. Zines are a response to attitudes within publishing, but the zine is very easily co-opted by dominator culture. The central ideology of zines corresponds to Jack Halberstam's conception of low theory, which proposes that artistic qualities of improvisation, amateurism, and failure act as resistance against hegemonic norms. From their often chaotic design language, their intentionally low circulation, often less than 1,000 copies, and their non-profit business model, zines reject the notion of an atomized, hyper-consumerist society and its insistence on productive uses of time. Zine culture is, in the words of theorist Stephen Duncombe, a haven for misfits. The subcultural cachet zines possess attracts the vultures of dominator culture. In early 2025, Condé Nast-owned music website Pitchfork announced the release of a zine amidst widespread redundancies and the folding of the site into GQ. Depending on one's generosity of spirit, the announcement was either a rightful return to the underground roots from which Pitchfork had emerged in the late 1990s, or a last-ditch effort to cling to indie credibility from a publication that had irrevocably sold out. The resultant publication bore little resemblance to the scrappy DIY vibe of traditional zines, hewing closer to a high-end art book, priced accordingly at $25 per issue. Celebrated with a launch at tastemaker New York venue Baby's All Right, the Pitchfork zine debacle questioned how far the signification of zines as grassroots objects could stretch. Zines express intense and narrow preoccupation. A recent zine from model and socialite Louis Bubko, Zine displays a year's worth of weed bags found on the streets of New York over a 4-month period. Pornography, radical politics, personal experience, niche subcultures. Zines thrive in the realms of the specific and the particular. The zine's subversive and hyper-specific potential, however, is not tied to any one political project. In the early 1990s, at the same time that leftist DIY zines like Punk Planet were gaining renown, so too were neo-Nazi zines like Blood and Honor. For better or for worse, the zine is a form available to all. Zines are both art and anti-art. Though there have been recent attempts to bring zines into the gallery space, such as Brooklyn Museum's Copy Machine Manifestos, Artists Who Make Zines show from 2023, zines fundamentally resist the logic of curation integral to the art world. Conventional art is mediated by critics, galleries, institutions, and cultural actors, whereas zines prioritize unpolished, direct expression. They do not require a studio space or expensive materials. Anyone with a photocopier, a stapler, and an idea can create a zine. It is their very rejection of artistic norms that outlines their significance as art objects. By positioning themselves outside of the art world's accepted frameworks, zines generate a space where art can exist on its own terms. Zines are economic objects, but ahistorical ones. Paper, staples, ink, and photocopiers tie zines to economic structures. Among certain zinesters, there has been a push to acknowledge that zines are not necessarily ideologically pure items, with a growing number embracing ISBNs and other forms of institutional validation. Zinesters are split on whether this engagement dilutes the radicalism of the zine format or proposes the zine as a cultural Trojan horse, a means of infiltrating and disrupting traditional publishing systems. Zines rarely include dates of publication unless the content is rooted in a specific historical moment, and their content often appropriates visual or textual sources from across historical periods. In this way, zines function as a nexus of transhistorical authorship, layering fragments of the past to create something new. However, as seen in zines like Girl Germs, a defining document of the Riot Grrrl scene, zines have the ability to make history, writing identities and eras into the canon. Zines are mediated through technology, and a kind of technology. Zine popularity always coincides with the availability of reproductive technologies. The heyday of zine popularity, the 1990s, hinged upon the boom in Xerox machines, which enabled cheap, high-volume replication. At first glance, the rise of the internet, a faster and more efficient medium for communication, might have seemed like a death knell for zines. Yet zines have evolved well to the internet era. Webzines digitize the zine reading experience, and online marketplaces make them easier to find and purchase. If anything, the internet's increasing clutter, with its noise, unreliability, and endlessly expanding advertising, serves to reaffirm the unique value zines provide. As physical objects, they unfold spatial and temporal pathways and offer a form of mediation the internet may never be able to match.
To hear more podcasts from Tank, you can subscribe on all major podcast platforms or follow us on SoundCloud. The theme music for this podcast is by Himera.